Chicago Tonight, Black Voices is made possible in part by Fifth Third Bank and by the support of these donors.
At Fifth Third, we believe when diverse voices are heard and empowered, communities are made stronger, lives are made better, and the future holds greater promise for all. That's why we're proud to support Chicago Tonight Black Voices. Together, we can make a difference. Together, we can drive change.
Good evening and welcome to Chicago Tonight Black Voices. I'm Brandis Friedman. Thank you for sharing part of your weekend with us. On the show tonight, a statewide effort to end what some call permanent punishments, laws and sanctions that limit the lives of formerly incarcerated Illinoisans. Advocates tell us why it's time to break those barriers. In this month's Black Voices Book Club, a previously unpublished novel by one of the most influential authors of the 20th century, more than 61 years since his death. A local skateboard program gives young Chicagoans a chance to learn new skills and life lessons.
A coffee shop for the people, ran by the people, for the people. This is the people's coffee shop.
And a musician turned mental health advocate gives the last word on normalizing therapy in the Black community. First off tonight, in America, many view incarceration as the punishment one receives for breaking the law. But a recently released study indicates that for the more than 3.3 million people in Illinois with criminal records, their punishment continues well past the time they serve. The report exposes hundreds of laws and restrictions that make it prohibitively difficult for people with criminal records to rebuild their lives after incarceration. This week, the Heartland Alliance and other human rights advocates launched a statewide effort to end those laws and sanctions. It's called the Fully Free Campaign. Joining us to discuss it are Heartland Alliance Fully Free Campaign Manager Marlon Chamberlain and Fully Free Campaign board member and Live Free Chicago organizer Willette Benford. Thanks to you both for joining us. Marlon, let's start with you, please. Explain for us what you all mean by permanent punishments. What kind of limitations are on the books in Illinois?
So I would first start off by saying the reason why we decided to call them permanent punishments and not collateral consequences is because collateral consequence suggests that this was accidental. And we don't believe that this web of laws were accidental. And so we decided to call them permanent punishments because that's exactly what they are. It's like a punishment after the punishment after you've been released from incarceration. And this web of laws also hinder people from opportunities in moving forward with their lives, whether it's housing, educational, or employment.
And Willette, give us a sense, if you would, of the scale of this problem. How many people are affected by it?
Well, in Illinois, 3.3 million adults have been arrested or convicted of a crime since 1979, which is widely thought to be the beginning of mass incarceration. So that equates to about a quarter of the entire Illinois population. Over 25% of the population has an arrest or a conviction.
And Willette, give us a sense of, the impact on the Black and brown communities in particular.
Yes, Black women make up a little over 14% of the adult Illinois population, but over a third of those arrested or convicted of a crime. Black men, they are 13% of the adult men in Illinois, but over a quarter of all men arrested or convicted. Black people make up 13.8% of Illinois adult population, but Black people make up 28.9% of those who acquire arrest or conviction records, 34.9% of people who were convicted of a crime, and 45.3% of people who were convicted of felonies.
And Marlon Chamberlain, how have you personally, if you don't mind sharing, how have you been affected by some of these so-called permanent punishments?
So in 2002, I was sentenced to a 20-year federal prison sentence. And in 2010, my sentence was reduced as a result of the passing of the Fair Sentencing Act, which changed the ratio between crack and cocaine. And so ultimately, my sentence was reduced from 20 to 14 years, and I was released on May 29th of 2012. And so I've been home now almost 10 years. I've been employed since I've been home. I'm a college student, I'm married. I've recently purchased a home, and how these laws recently impacted me. My 7-year-old son was taking a school trip to a bowling alley, and his teachers asked me to chaperone because they see how engaged I am in my son's education. And so I completed the application and was denied an opportunity to participate as a chaperone because of my record. But there, like I said before, there are a web of laws. And another example that I could give is that anyone with a felony conviction, the law prohibits them from being the executive or administrator of really like controlling like their family's will if someone was to pass away, which is a law that has nothing to do with public safety. It's just a law on the books that just doesn't make sense. And in situations where if an individual is the only one that could be the executive of their family's will, then it creates a challenge because now the person is not able to really handle their family's business because of their record.
Willette, what do you say to the argument that some of these sanctions are necessary for public safety, to keep businesses perhaps safe from hiring people who might be untrustworthy?
Well, I say that when someone has served their time and you re-enter society, the one thing you want to do is set people up for success. It's not proven anywhere where businesses are kept safe because they don't hire people that have felony convictions or have a conviction or arrest on their records. Usually these are some of the most best employees that you can hire. And so I don't think that, I know that that doesn't keep our communities safe, Xing people out of opportunities to re-enter society and be gainfully employed.
Marlon, what effect would you say these sanctions have on the recidivism rate?
So I think the impact on the recidivism rate is that if people can't find opportunities, if people can't find employment, if people can't find housing, it's almost like you're forcing people to go back to a lifestyle that they may not necessarily want to go back to. And so I think it definitely adds to the recidivism rate. And I would also say that to me, the recidivism rate is really a grade on the system and not the individuals. Because if we remove these barriers, then people would be able to really move forward with their life and not have to worry about a mistake that they've made in the past.
So the launch event that you all held this past week included testimonials from several formerly incarcerated people. Here's a clip from Avalon Betts-Gaston of the Safer Foundation.
We never fully pay our debt to society. We go, we're incarcerated, we come home, and society rejects us on a multitude of levels. We have restrictions with regards to what jobs we can have. We have restrictions as to where we can live. We have restrictions as to where we can buy insurance or get credit. There are over 4 million people in the state of Illinois that have some type of arrest record or conviction record. And we cannot remain a second-class citizenry in this state.
Now, we know that Black women are being increasingly affected by the criminal legal system. Willette, how are women like Betts-Gaston, how are they and their families uniquely affected?
Well, women are uniquely affected because women are normally the primary caregivers of their children. And when you deny a woman housing, employment, educational opportunities, then you're ultimately denying their children also. And so when you do that in a community and in a society, you're ultimately saying the woman doesn't matter, nor does her children matter.
And Marlon, before we let you go, how is your campaign suggesting that we remove these laws and sanctions? What are the next steps that the Fully Free campaign is going to be taking?
So a part of our campaign strategy this summer is to continue building out a diverse coalition that reflects representation of people from all across the state. We've already started this campaign. Actually, this year in 2021, we actually passed a bill, the public housing bill, which changes systemic changes in the ways that the Public Housing Authority bars individual from safe housing after incarceration. We've also passed HB 88, which removes the permanent barrier for individuals with a drug-related felony to access TANF. And as I said before, we're also just continuing to build out a coalition that is led by directly impacted people who will be centered in leading this campaign. So we will continue building out our coalition. And then also our research partners.
And we look forward to, and sorry, Marlon, we're actually going to have all of you back to talk about this as you get further down the road on this research. We're actually out of time. In the meantime, my thanks to Marlon Chamberlain and Willette Benford for joining us.
Thank you.
And up next, the next selection in our monthly Black Voices Book Club series. Stay with us. Richard Wright, who died in 1960, is considered to be one of the greatest writers of the 20th century. Wright's 1940 book, Native Son, and 1945's Black Boy made him a best-selling author and towering figure in literature. But a novel he wrote between the publication of those two books was initially rejected by his editors and published only as a short story. It has since been restored and published in its entirety, and now that novel is the next selection in our Black Voices Book Club. It is called The Man Who Lived Underground, and it's entirely different from the Richard Wright most of us know. Joining us now is Richard Wright's grandson, Malcolm Wright. Malcolm, thank you so much for joining us. First, why wasn't this book published back in 1942?
Yeah, that's a great question. Look, I think the primary reason was that it caught the publishers and editors off guard. It wasn't what they expected from Richard Wright. He had previously written Native Son, which is a very different book, a lot more, how should I say, contrasted, less nuanced, less depth to it, really, if we're going to talk about depth. So I think that was the first surprise. And then, of course, when you see what the first maybe quarter of the novel is composed of, with the brutal torture of a Black man at the hands of the police, that's a conversation that we are only just becoming somewhat comfortable with today. And in the 1940s, that's just, it wasn't a conversation at all. And so I don't think that that was gonna pass muster for the gatekeepers at the time.
It was your mother who discovered this book. How did she come across it?
So the archives are at the Yale Beinecke Rare Book Library in Connecticut. And my mother was there researching the archives, and she came across it and immediately realized that this is absolutely a story that we need to have among our public conversations now. So she set about trying to get it published, and it took a while, but here we are. And the Library of America were really fantastic throughout that collaboration.
Now, you wrote the afterword for this book, and in it you liken the plot to Plato's allegory of the cave. We don't have a lot of time, but I would love for you to tell us a little bit about how you came to that.
Yeah, well, I mean, that allegory is really important to me just because I feel like at the core of human experience is this difficulty to learn from each other, right? If we haven't experienced something ourselves. And yet, if we could learn better from each other, how much more advanced would we be? And how much easier would we learn the more difficult lessons of life? And so the allegory of the cave is really at its core about, the inability for someone who has partaken in a larger reality to share that with people who have not partaken of that larger reality. And in the book, This is the case of the hero. He's shunted underground through his experience with the justice system that is trying to railroad him for a double murder. And through that, he gains this incredible perspective on life above ground, life within the society that was trying to railroad him, and really on the human condition as a whole. But tragically, he's unable to communicate this experience to anybody, and it has very dire consequences for him. And so the interesting thing is that it's the allegory in reverse, because Plato wrote this as someone leaving a cave and discovering the world above ground where the sun shines, and then not being able to explain that to the people who stay back in the cave. But Fred Daniels actually learns about a broader reality underground and then can't explain that to the people above ground.
What do you think your grandfather would say, think, how would he react to the state of race relations and police brutality today?
I think he'd be doing much of what he was doing during his life, which is just always trying to push us forwards and just discovering these broader realities, because that was really the template of his life, and then trying to share it with us. So the state of play now, look, I think that his take would not be so uncommon. A lot of us feel like we're making progress, but it's not enough. To get a little bit into the weeds with you on that, I mean, I'm really getting tired of talk of reform because we know what the disparities are. We have something called big data today, and we have some incredibly powerful machines to process that data. And yet we're not allowing that to come into the process of our legal decisions. So, confront the judges with their biases. The data is there. Make it real time so that they know they're transgressing the norm or the standard of what is supposed to be imposed for a particular crime in a particular circumstance. It'll change behavior. If we're serious about it, we'd be doing stuff like that.
And Malcolm, we've got about 20 seconds left. What does it mean to you and your family to finally have this book published and out there for everyone else?
It's a terrific feeling. It has been silently our favorite story of Richard's, even in its shorter form before we knew the longer version. So now that it's out in the open and part of the public discussion, we're really hopeful that it's going to help that discussion move forwards. It could be an incredible tool for teaching empathy to kids in school. And Richard Wright has been taught very broadly within the United States and around the world. I really hope that this book becomes part of that effort.
Growing up in Mississippi, I read it as a child myself. Malcolm Wright, it's a pleasure to have you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you.
Again, the book is called The Man Who Lived Underground by Richard Wright. You can read an excerpt on our website. Up next, learning life skills on wheels. Stay with us. Skateboarding has been considered a sport, art form, and even a lifestyle by people devoted to the activity. Here in Chicago, new skateboard program is helping young people break out of the pandemic blues by learning the basics while picking up valuable life lessons along the way. Chicago Tonight's Evan Garcia recently skated over to the South Side to learn more.
Go, 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 go. The second week of a youth skateboard program in Chicago starts slow, with participants seated on boards during a race. But by the end of the session, the young skaters are already learning new tricks.
It's really fun, and I think I'm getting better, and I'm learning to do ollies now. Say if there's another skateboard on the ground, and an ollie is when you jump over it while you're riding and then you land.
The lessons are a collaboration between the Boys and Girls Club of Chicago and the Chill Foundation, a nonprofit started in 1995 by Burton Snowboards, which runs programs across the world.
Our overall mission is to teach kids how to overcome challenges through board sports. We understand that in Chicago there may be a lot of challenges, different economic situations or socioeconomic things that may be challenging, But here at Chill, our goal is to help them push through that. And if they can see that they can do that on the board, then why can't they do that in regular life?
This year's spring session is taking place in Bridgeport at the Lewis L. Valentine's Boys and Girls Club. The club's art instructor, Tamaris Dennis, is learning alongside the young people while assisting them.
They do look to adults for inspiration, and just seeing me be brave enough to attempt getting on the board is, I wouldn't say the first thing that got them on the board, but it'll definitely get them getting back on the board. Like, oh, if Tamaris is trying it, then I'll try it too. Like, there's nothing to be afraid of.
The skateboard program started here in East Garfield Park at the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Boys and Girls Club. Classes began in the fall during a surge in COVID-19 cases.
It was just a breath of fresh air. COVID-19 really had an effect on youth's physical, mental, social health. And so Chill really had, just gave the opportunity for you to, be outside, social distance, but also learn a skill and socialize with their peers.
2 years ago, I spoke with instructor Christopher Long for a story on a Chicago Park District skateboard program. Through the Chill Foundation, he's continuing to teach the lessons he learned as a young skater.
Learning a lot about myself through skateboarding, so learning to pick myself up from falling, to be persistent, all these things that we practice and Chill, and noticing that all these soft skills that we develop through skateboarding are inherent to like our own personal success, and how can we empower youth to develop those skills to lead to a successful future on and off their skateboards.
9-year-old Tony is already picking up on those important values.
It helped me a lot to become more brave, because at first I kept on falling and off the skateboard and I was kind of scared. But one of the teachers told me that falling is part of learning, so I feel good now. I know how to skateboard properly.
For Chicago Tonight, I'm Evan Garcia.
Nice skating, Evan. This summer, the Chill Foundation is bringing its program to the Martin Luther King Jr. Club in East Garfield Park for a 6-week course starting July 12th. The program is open to children with a Boys and Girls Club of Chicago membership, which costs $20 annually. Coffee, hip-hop, and mental health. It sounds like 3 completely unrelated concepts, but for Chicagoan Christopher Lamarck, those things collided at a crossroads for him, changing his life and, he hopes, the lives of others. Here, Lamarck gives us the last word on making mental health therapy normal and accessible for all who need it.
I am Christopher Lamarck. I'm the founder of Coffee, Hip Hop, and Mental Health. And I want to tell you how this whole thing came about. I was sitting inside of Starbucks pre-COVID, October 2018. I took a break from work. I was working a pretty crappy job. I wasn't in the best relationship. I was having a hard time trying to figure out what was next. I was getting ready to turn 40, and I didn't own anything. So my life, to me, was in shambles. And I had what is called a mental and emotional breakdown. All the unresolved childhood trauma, sleeping in dark basements for a span of 12 years, eating from the garbage can, not feeling worthy, and being tossed from different group home to group home. All those old feelings came up, mixed with all the present day things as an adult, all the bad decisions. I couldn't keep it together anymore. So I knew in this moment I needed to go get some help. So when I went to therapy, my therapist said to me, Christopher, it wasn't your fault that you were abused. And I held that, and that did something to me. It unlocked some peace. And so I went home one day and I wrote down 3 words that changed my life: coffee, hip hop, and mental health. Coffee, because my mental and emotional breakdown happened inside of a coffee shop, which became my breakthrough. It pushed me to go get some help. And then hip hop has been like therapy for me. Without hip hop, I would have killed myself a long time ago. And then mental health, well, because we don't talk about it in our community. So after having that moment in therapy, I started putting together all these incredible, beautiful sessions all throughout the city of Chicago. So many people started to say they needed help. So I started working on normalized therapy. That became a campaign, which is our mission, to normalize safe spaces, right? So we opened up a beautiful coffee shop right in the heart of Lakeview. We sell coffee and merchandise to fund our biggest mission, which is Normalized Therapy University. Yes, we take profits from the coffee shop to raise awareness, but also to pay therapists so people in the city of Chicago who are struggling can find some help, right? They can go to our program online, Normalized Therapy University, sign up, and get 5 free sessions on us. So thank you, Lakeview and the city of Chicago, for helping us open up these doors. So when you buy a cup of coffee, you don't just buy a cup of coffee, but you're helping us change the city of Chicago by helping those who are struggling both emotionally and mentally.
And a happy birthday is in order for Coffee, Hip Hop, and Mental Health. The organization is celebrating its 2nd anniversary on July 7th. You can find more on the organization on our website, and while you're there, you can check out other clips of the Last Word series. And that's our show for this Sunday night. Join Paris Schutz and me tomorrow at 7 on Chicago Tonight. And tomorrow night at 8, join this month's Chicago Tonight Latino Voices Community Conversation. We're talking with Latinx LGBTQ leaders in Chicago about Pride Month and the Latinx LGBTQ experience. And that's Monday evening at 8. You can visit WTTW.com/voices to RSVP. Now, for all of us here at Chicago Tonight Black Voices, I'm Brandis Friedman. Thank you for sharing part of your weekend with us. Stay healthy and safe, and have a good night.
Closed captioning is made possible by Robert A. Clifford and Clifford Law Offices, a personal injury law firm serving Chicago for 37 years.